Welcome back to Green and Gold Forever. Thanks for joining us today. This is episode 2. We've been talking about the 2012 draft and particularly the Packers picks in the 2012 draft. Now we're going to talk about the 2012 Packers schedule. That came out just prior to the draft. And before we get on to that, of course, if there's anything you want to talk to us about pertaining to the show or just Packers in general, you can email us at greenandgoldpodcast@gmail.com. You can go to our Facebook page, which is Green and Gold Forever Podcast. Search that on Facebook. Or you can go to Twitter or YouTube, where on YouTube we have segment clips of the show at Green Gold, the number 4, ever. That's Green Gold, the number 4, the word ever. That's both Twitter and YouTube. There will be a quiz later to keep all that straight. Now let's get on to the 2012 Packers schedule. Actually looking pretty favorable for the Packers. Of course, the years you say that is the years it's tougher, and then the years you think it's the most difficult, such as 2010, it ends up working out real well for them. But let's just run it down real quick. We'll go month by month here. We have the San Francisco 49ers starting on Sunday, September 9th. Of course, the 3:15 National Fox game. I don't remember the last time the Packers started the season at noon, but they're playing the San Francisco 49ers. Actually, the Packers, if they win that game, here's a Green and Gold fun fact, if they're able to beat the San Francisco 49ers, they will set the franchise record for most consecutive opening day wins. And believe it or not, which this shocked me, the consecutive opening day wins is actually set in the 80s, is the one who had it. It's not the Holmgren era, it's not the Lombardi era, it's the combined Bart Starr, Forrest Gregg era that has the record right now tied with the current team. That's 1980 through 84, which, you know, only a bunch of 8-8 seasons and one strike-shortened playoff berth. Of course, the start of that streak being the infamous Chester Markle blocked field goal touchdown run game. So just a little fun anecdote from Packers history about that. 4 days later, they're taking on the Chicago Bears on Thursday Night Football, which wall-to-wall this year for the NFL is Thursday Night Football. That's also at Lambeau Field. Then on Monday, September 24th, they head out to Seattle to take on Matt Flynn and the Seattle Seahawks in their only appearance on Monday Night Football. And then they host the New Orleans Saints. Short a few men compared to the last time they're at Lambeau Field. That will also be a 3:15 Fox game. So 3 of the first 4 against very good teams. And Seattle, obviously, 1 year removed from a division title. So a tough slate in September. Thankfully, 3 of the 4 games are at home, Matt.
Yeah, it's a pretty brutal start in the first 4 weeks. If there's some way we can come out of this 3-1, I think I'm going to be very happy with that. The start against the 49ers, we'll see what we get from them this year, but either way, it's a tough defense no matter what we get from the offense. Bears 4 days later, that's brutal.
Yeah, no kidding.
We're expecting them to be one of the best teams in the NFC and off only 4 days rest. It's not like they're getting more rest, but, you know, I feel that we have superior coaching staff and maybe a little better strategists, so maybe that shortened time frame is going to be a little benefit to them. So then you kind of look as the down week against the Seahawks, but this is still a pretty good team. We'll see how Matt Flynn starts here, but I think they're going to be a pretty solid squad this year. And then the New Orleans Saints, which last year everybody thought was going to be the best team in the NFC.
And I just think,
yeah, probably still were after what we saw from us in the postseason. But I don't think losing their head coach is going to be as much of a detriment as people think. I think they're still going to come out and be a good squad. I don't think there's any way they lose more than 6 games this year. They're still going to be a playoff team regardless. They still have Drew Brees, so. I mean, I guess we'll see what kind of suspensions are handed out to the defense, which we're still waiting on.
Well, it's not like they had much of a defense last year either, but it was better than the Packers. But yeah, I think it'll be interesting. I'm curious to see San Francisco, to see if they're a flash in the pan or not, or if they're actually a legit contender that's going to be around for years to come. I like to think that they can be at home and win those games, but yeah, even if they go 2-2, I wouldn't be all that surprised. I don't know if they win all 3 of those home games, and going up to Quest Field is never an easy task. Let's move on to October, which starts off with 3 road games, which I remember the Packers having those all the time in the 90s in the Holmgren era. It seemed like every November or October they had 3 straight road games. Haven't seen that on the schedule for a number of years, if I recall correctly. At the Indianapolis Colts and the number 1 pick, Andrew Luck, then at the Houston Texans, who, of course, were very close to being in the AFC Championship game last year, and at the St. Louis Rams, who won 15 games in the last 5 years, which is the worst stretch of any 5-year team in NFL history. And then they bring it home against the always tough Jacksonville Jaguars. So,
yeah,
what do you think of that month?
I think this is, our easiest month of the season here. The Colts, Rams, Jags, these are 3 games that not only should we win, but I don't really see any way that we don't win. These teams are all so bad. I guess we'll have to wait and see what Andrew Luck can do, but with what's around him, I think it's going to be pretty tough for him to carry the entire team.
And it'll be his 5th career start.
Exactly. In terms of the Texans game, this is just kind of one of those games that I look at the schedule going into the season and say, well, that's probably going to be a loss. Going into Houston to play one of the best teams in the AFC, I don't know. I guess you chalk up your losses at some point during the season. I guess this is just a game I don't really see them winning. Not necessarily that they're better than the Packers, but, home field advantage. And like I said, you're going to lose some games, and this is going to be an extremely tough game with how good that running game is.
Well, it'll be on Sunday Night Football as well, so they're going to be jacked. One thing, though, if they shut that roof, it's over for the Texans. If you look at Aaron Rodgers' career performance indoors, Packers indoors are always a scary team, home or away. Well, obviously not home, but I wish they would build a roof over Lambeau we'd have beat the Giants probably then. But
You better be careful. That's kind of sacrilege.
Well, wouldn't you rather win Super Bowls than be cold and feel prideful about sitting out in the cold?
Yeah, I definitely would, but I think there's a handful of fans that probably, have burning pitchforks coming at us if we talk about putting
they also don't have any toes because they sit out there in the cold and watch them get blown out by teams in the playoffs the last 10 years or so. But yeah, I'm with you that if they don't beat the Colts, the Rams, and the Jaguars by 2 touchdowns, I'd be very surprised.
Yeah.
Let's go on to November here. Home to the Arizona Cardinals, then the bye week, a very late bye week for them. And then at Detroit, at the New York Giants. That's your month of November. Obviously 2 very tough games in there, back-to-back. But they are the exact same spot on the schedule they were last year with those 2 teams in those 2 buildings. So interesting that happens again.
It's a little tougher stretch here. Cardinals aren't going to be easy, as we talked about earlier. We'll see what they get out of the quarterback position, but either way, trying to cover Fitzgerald and some of those other offensive weapons is going to be tough. Lions, Giants, obviously very difficult games. We seem to have the Giants' number during the regular season, at least as far as I can recall.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully these are 2 easier wins for us, even against tough teams at least. I'm still not completely sold on the Lions. We'll see how they start again this season, but hopefully 2 more victories. I think this is definitely a stretch where we can win all these games. The Giants this is about the point of the season where the Giants start to kind of turn it around, maybe with the momentum against a good team like us.
Yeah, I'm not really sold. You can obviously tell through my reactions to the first 2 podcasts that I'm not very impressed with the Giants. But you never know. In their building, it's always a tough game. I think they could win all 3 of these. They also could lose 2 of the 3. I think they probably will beat Detroit. I think they have a real good chance to beat the New York Giants, but I guess we'll see. And then moving on to December, 5 games in December this year, and a lot of NFC North teams on that schedule. Home to the Vikings on December 2nd. Home to the Lions on December 9th, where they haven't won in 21 tries here in the state of Wisconsin since 1991. The Bears at Soldier Field on December 16th. Home to the Tennessee Titans, and then finishing up the season on December 30th at the Metrodome.
Yeah, looks like a pretty solid schedule to finish up with here. Getting the Vikings twice at the end of the season should be good. I don't expect a lot out of them this season. Adrian Peterson is going to be hurt by that point of the season.
Oh, God.
but we'll see what Christian Ponder does this year. Doesn't have a ton of weapons around him other than Peterson and Percy Harvin if he can stay healthy. So you would hope that those are 2 wins. The Titans, I'm not really sold on here. We'll see if Jake Locker is possibly starting by that point of the year. But the Bears game is the one I look towards a lot here.
That's going to be tough.
At Chicago, we could have the division on the line here, which I think it probably will have some implications at that point in the season. So I think that'll be a huge one for us.
Yeah, without a doubt. That one, to me, out of all the games on the schedule, looks just like an automatic loss. They have a hard enough time winning there as it is. You never know what's going to happen, obviously, by that late in the season. But one thing that I did think just now as you were talking about the Vikings is that if things don't go well in the Congress for Minnesota getting a new stadium for the Vikings and in the city, that could be the last game of the Metrodome, and it could be the last game of the Minnesota Vikings with the Green Bay Packers there. I kind of hope that doesn't happen, I would say. maybe the most sinister Packer fan in me kind of does hope the Vikings move. But most of me, the friendly person that doesn't want anybody in Minnesota to lose their team, certainly would like to see the Vikings find a way to stay in Minnesota. But that's the 2012 schedule. I penciled it in. I can't tell you exactly which games I thought. I kind of chalked up a loss between one of two games. I had them going 12-4 with this schedule. What about you?
I think about 13-3 probably. I wouldn't be shocked. Anywhere between 2 and 5 losses, I wouldn't be surprised with at all. I'll say 13-3 though, because it seems like we're at least a good enough team that will win the games we're supposed to win. I know we occasionally have a letdown like Kansas City last year or Tampa Bay a couple of years ago, but I think that we'll beat a lot of these good teams just because simply we're better than they are, and I'll go with 13-3.
Okay.
We also had a prediction on Facebook as well from one of our listeners, Caleb, who predicted us to go 12-4 and get the 1 seed as well. So it looks like we're kind of all in the same boat here with that.
Yeah, if they can stay healthy, I don't see any reason why they should lose more than, things can happen, but shouldn't lose necessarily more than 5 games. So we'll see if they can stick to that. Obviously, things can change, but certainly the stars look aligned for another Packers run at a Super Bowl title.